All right, Kelly Shackelford, Esquire, is president and CEO of First Liberty Institute, the largest legal firm in the nation dedicated exclusively to protecting religious freedom for all Americans. Kelly is a constitutional scholar who has argued before the United States Supreme Court, testified before the U.S. House and Senate, and has won a number of landmark First Amendment and religious liberty cases. Are you there? Oh,
I
hey,
am.
hi, how are you? Thank you for coming
Great.
on.
Well, happy to do it.
So we're talking about a case about a World War I memorial. First, let me ask you just a little bit about this the First Liberty Institute. Do you do this pro bono? I mean, do you take on these cases?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. It's a really actually fairly unusual. If you were to look at the nonprofits that are out there, whatever their issue is, whether they're left wing or right wing or whatever, they do the same model, which is sort of raise as much money as you can and then hire the attorneys and then do the cases. That's really not our model. Our model is there's all these people of faith who went to law school because they wanted to stand for what was right. And 30 years later, these are the best litigators at the best law firms in the country. And they did honorable work, but they've never gotten to do a case for their faith or for the country. So we go and we find those people and we say, look, if we give you everything you need, are you willing to give your time on one of these cases? And they're like, man, I've been waiting 35 years, sign me up. And so we get teams on our cases that you could never pay for, dream teams. And as a result, it's 18 years in a row, I guess now, we've won over 90% of our cases each year. High win rate because we get the best of the best and we're fighting for principles that our founders put in place and they're in the law and the Constitution, and so we should win.
That is fantastic. First Liberty Institute. I have to tell you, I've never heard of you, and I've always wondered when I see the ACLU, why don't we have guys like that? It's good to know you're there. So that's great. So Kelly Shackelford, one of the cases that you're dealing with now is this case that involves a World War I memorial. Can you describe what the issue is?
Yeah, this is the Bladensburg World War I memorial. It was put up almost 100 years ago by mothers who lost their sons in World War I and the American Legion. And it was put up on American Legion land. And then years later, decades later, this is right outside of Washington, D.C., and it was to honor the 49 men in that county who had died in World War I. And of course, right outside of D.C., they're building roads. So as they did the roads, they weren't gonna do anything to the memorial. I mean, this is a veterans memorial that had been up for 40 years, but they had to take control of the land to control the roads and everything that was going on. So all of a sudden, it's government land. Then go another 40 years forward, and the American humanists come along and say, "Hey, wait, why is this cross on government land?" And they filed a lawsuit saying this violates the Establishment Clause. You have to tear down this cross. And we won at the district court. At the Court of Appeals, really, we had 2 Obama-appointed federal judges and 1 Clinton-appointed judge. One of the Obama judges in the oral argument said, why don't we just cut the arms off the cross? Won't that take care of all the problems? It can stay there, and yet nobody will be offended. Like nobody would be offended that they desecrate a war memorial. As you can guess, they voted 2-1. The Clinton judge voted with us and said, we have veterans memorials with religious symbols. We don't tear down veterans memorials. But it was a 2-1 decision. And the Supreme Court granted a certiorari in the case. And so it's going to be argued Wednesday morning, February 27th, 10 a.m. And this is about not just this memorial. I mean, this is crucial because what it would mean for this memorial. But not 4 miles away is Arlington National Cemetery. If this precedent stays, they have to go into Arlington and tear down the large freestanding crosses in Arlington. And they have to go probably in every community of every state in this country and do that as well. So it's a very significant case for the future of the country, not only for those reasons, but because there's a lot of talk about changing the approach, the test they've been using and everything that's creating all this confusion and chaos. And we're trying to encourage them. We need to go back to the Constitution and away from these things that are really causing a lot of difficulty in this area that are unnecessary.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because obviously, emotionally, this is very offensive, and the idea of tearing down all these crosses is kind of horrific. But let's leave that aside, all the emotion aside for a minute. Just talk about the law.
Sure.
What the Establishment Clause? How does the Establishment Clause affect this case exactly?
Well, what it says, for those who don't know, is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. What that means, we think, is something very different from what it's come to be applied. So what's happened is over the last 70 years, tests have been created by justices on the court, like the lemon test, which is actually aptly named. It's a very poor test. What you'll find is the court uses it when they want to strike something down under the Establishment Clause, and then they ignore it completely when it would lead to a different result. And so, for instance, they had a recent case, Town of Greece, where the question is, can you have prayer to open city council meetings? Well, the problem is, if you want to strike that down, you have a problem because the founders were opening their meetings with prayer when they passed the First Amendment. So, but if you apply the lemon test, you strike it down. So they just didn't apply the lemon test. They just ignored the lemon test. And this is the problem. And all that is based upon sort of a concept of a strict separation of church and state and those kinds of things you hear about, none of which are in the Constitution. But they create, if you're a local municipality or whatever, you're not sure what you can do. And anytime you touch religion, maybe it's a violation, then guess what you do? You just shut everything down. And you essentially create the government being hostile to religion, which was never what the founders wanted. And so what we're saying is, look, what is the real purpose of the Establishment Clause? The founders, I think we all know this, didn't want there to be a national church. They didn't want to be forced to support the church, and they wanted the free exercise of religion. And so the Establishment Clause is about, we don't want an establishment of one religion. And therefore, what we've offered the court said, let's go back to what the founders meant, what the Constitution says. And the test should be a coercion test, because that's what they were after. If the government is coercing anybody with regard to their religion, or setting up or establishing just a direct establishment of religion, those are violations. But if there isn't coercion, then we don't sort of engage in a religious cleansing where we go across the country and look for religious symbols that we can tear down. The founders would have had no problem with religious symbols. I mean, they had a chaplain to open up their meetings that they paid out of the treasury. In God We Trust is on the currency. I mean, there's all these things that make clear that they had no problem with that. They just wanted freedom. And so the issue of compulsion or coercion is where we're trying to get the court to go. And the Solicitor General's office agrees with us, and they're arguing the same argument tomorrow as well.
One of the tricks that the American Civil Liberties Union and other organizations that are against America, civility and liberties use is they go into these kind of smallish places and they threaten people who in no way can afford to defend themselves, school districts and things like that, who just do not want to take on the cost of a lawsuit, and the people back down. Is it possible that the Supreme Court will deliver a decision on this case that will make that harder to do?
I think it's very possible. I think over 6 justices have said this area of the law is in hopeless disarray. It's a mess. Justice Thomas was the last one to say that. They know they have a problem. It's even somewhat embarrassing. Scalia wrote probably one of the funniest concurrences you'll ever read in your life is his concurrence in Lamb's Chapel, where he refers to the lemon test as some sort of late night ghoul that shuffles abroad, and they bring it out when they want to scare the school children and strike something down, and then they leave it in the grave. When he said we put our pencil through the creature's heart 6 times in different decisions, and it's funny because he's mocking the fact that they've created a mess, and they know they've created a mess, and I think they know they want to clean it up, and we now have 5 justices who are committed to originalism, are committed to an approach of the written word of the Constitution, which really that hasn't happened since the 1920s. And so I think we're going to start seeing opinions that go back to what the Constitution says and what it really means. And I think this is a prime area for that to be done. And it will be a good thing for the country. And as you say, for all these communities, we do come in at First Liberty Institute. When they get threatened, we come in and offer to represent the counties, cities, et cetera, for free. We've done that over and over again and stopped a lot of these sort of scare tactics. But a lot of these people don't want any trouble, and they just fold.
Yeah.
They pull down the cross. They take the steeple off their city seal. You name it. And we would lose who we are as a country if we didn't defend the religious heritage and symbols. It's not a religious cleansing society. I mean, we have secular symbols and religious symbols. It's okay to have secular monuments and religious symbols that are part of monuments. That's very normal for a country that has the history that we do.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I mean, you've got senators questioning judge candidates on their religion, which is a complete violation of the Constitution.
That's right.
Kelly Shackelford from First Liberty Institute. Listen, I hope you'll keep in touch with our guys. Let us know what you're doing. I'm really interested in what you're doing. It sounds like a great organization. I appreciate your coming on.
Oh, happy to do it. And if anybody wants any info, want to see the briefs, anything on the case, they can just go, you spell it out, firstliberty.org, and it has everything on the Bladensburg Cross and the case.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.